All right. How's everyone doing? What a blessed Sabbath. I don't typically work, but on a Sunday or even try to do anything at all except cleaning the house and spending time with my family. But I'm having some powerful topics kind of cross my threshold. And I thought, we're at that stage as a collective where we really do need to talk about some of these things. So I'm so happy to see you on this Sunday. I hope that you're doing really, really well. Just some brief announcements if you want the bigger, longer, 2 to 3 hour masterclass and channeling on this topic. That will be on the first Sunday of the month. I believe that would be September the 4th, for the first Sunday of next month, right? And we're going to be channeling Yeshua again on this topic much more deeply. We have a 30% discount off of that channeling and class. And when we say holy language, I don't just mean words. That's like fourth step of the picture, icing on the cake. When you finally feel embodied, then your words just seem to flow and you're not worried about what that looks like anymore, right? When I mean holy language, I mean something really different. It's something that we need, that we seem to have forgotten in a modern world. We're kind of going about healing in this way that feels a little blah, blank, empty. And I want you to fill it back up with light, with the light of a Christed consciousness, with oneness, with the middle way, right? So that class is coming up. That bigger class is coming up early September, the first Sunday of the month, okay? Again, you get a 30% discount if you're a Patreon member. Patreon is just a place where I have a library of hundreds and hundreds, like not just 100 or 200. We're probably working like 300, 400, 500 at this point of classes and channelings and teachings that aren't available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you can join that. Only it's not expensive, not trying to break pocketbooks. It's $13. Skip Starbucks twice in a month and you'll be there to get all that access. So I hope that you do. And when you do, shoot us a little message from your Patreon account and we will give you your unique discount code for this upcoming class. Okay. So this subject, it's really precious to me. It's really a beautiful subject. And when channeled from Yeshua, it comes through in this way that is so ancient and simple. Okay. The subject holds a lot of power, a lot of relevance in terms of where we are in our world today and why we don't heal is what he has told me many times. So in terms of why we don't heal from a Yeshua perspective, there are many, many reasons. And the lack of a foundation of the sacred being conditioned out of us in education and religions and things of that, just parenting, just standard modern life. We have tried to replace the old without giving anything really fulfilling or sacred to replace it with. Everyone's all like, get rid of money, get rid of church, get rid of systems. But what are you replacing that with? We need a sacred direction to heal as a collective and as individuals. So do you know how your soul functions? Your soul is the language. Your soul is the foundation to that sacred temple that you call your mind and your body, as well as that sacred temple that you call life as a human. So when you ask yourself, why aren't my modalities working? Why isn't my meditation working? Why aren't my mantras working? If your soul isn't always connected to be able to download in information, if the soul isn't pure, cleansed, and having that clear, sacred foundation of holy language, basically you're just trying to, what is he saying here? He says you're trying to fill up on crackers and not, you don't have your vegetables, you don't have your fruit, you don't have, your proteins. It's like trying to fill up on crackers, he said. In the most simple, sweet way. He said, you can't fill up on crackers. So the modern world is giving you crackers to replace the ancient foundation of the sacred. Are you feeling what he's saying here? is just so relevant for the time. So what he asks is, do you know your function? Do you know your power? Or are you busy worried that someone's going to take it away? The most important challenge, he says, of your time as a collective, as a soul family, my children, the most important challenge of your time is truly recognizing and understanding that all the roads of your belief system, spiritually and otherwise, all the roads of your belief systems will lead to the soul. So why are you afraid of that word? He wants you to ask yourself, why don't I use that word anymore? That's the foundation for everything in your life. Everything comes from the soul, not the mind, it's been replaced with the words higher self. That's what he tells me that we have replaced the word soul with. But what does that mean? Then we automatically start to make the ego lesser. Even though it's an illusion, we try to make it lesser, but the ego is also a very powerful tool. Do you see how he wants you to ask yourselves, do you see how you've made everything hierarchical, everything bottom to top, top to bottom, this, that, and the other, better, less, good, bad, right, wrong, holy or not, right? Holiness is an inclusivity, not an exclusivity, he says. So he wants you to ask yourself these words as you're preparing, as we're all preparing to remember our holy selves, to remember the power of the human soul, individually and collectively, for that is what we need to heal. That's what we need. Do you know your power? Do you know how you function? So I came through that realization through my readings with you throughout the course of doing medical intuitive and what you call higher self. You notice how I don't use that word very often as a teacher. I like the word because this is the word that Jesus gives to me. I like the word soul essence. Have you noticed that when you go to all of my readings, the main one is always soul essence reading, soul essence reading, soul essence reading. You've replaced that word with higher self. When I say the word, I don't feel that burst of light, that starburst of energy just downloading through me at the speed of light saying, yes, that's it. When you tell me I want a higher self reading, I go, well, where's your lower one? Where's the middle one? Where are all the other ones in a lesser or greater degree? Is this one red? Is this one white? Is this one, right? Ego does that. People start saying, okay, well, that's this, and that's subconscious, and that's the soul, and that's the spirit, but that's not really in your body. Do you see what we do? We are programmed to be in this dense, blah language. So I learned from watching you replace your languages and replace your foundation over and over and over again for reading people for 24 years that you were afraid of the sacred languages, primarily because you think it's religious, right? But watching you heal and struggle to heal led me to this discovery of how powerful you are, and that every word that we say as humans has this power, and every place where we begin, even in our thought processes, has that power. Even in our thought processes, before we even begin to feel, there could either be a download of the sacred or a download of the fear. Which one are you going to choose? He asks you. Which one are you going to choose? Right? So every word that we say, he says, has this power because it is a sacred act of creation itself. Every thought that preceded the word has even a greater foundation of sacred power because it is an act of creation. The thought itself is an act of creation, he says. That is what makes language holy. So your soul, is the engine that is transforming the world around you. not your modalities, your soul. You can do this without a modality, any kind of modality. All that you have to do on a regular basis is stay in that sacred energy, and you're going to fall out of it. That's the ebb and flow of life. The ego is going to take over, and that's okay. And then we give that light burst of sacred energy to the ego to reinvigorate the soul. We invigorate the ego with a light burst of soul love. That's what he's wanting to share today. Can you do that? Can you be focused on that versus, oh no, here comes my ego again? He says you treat the ego really, really poorly, but give it a light burst from the holy energy of your soul. You need to understand down to the microcosm, the power of every thought, every emotion, every word you speak or write before you just start focusing on every action, right? So this is a journey of becoming conscious. He wants you to know that. This is your journey of consciousness. We're imbuing you with another holy sacred word, the word consciousness. That in our society, according to Yeshua, has been replaced with realization, actualization, spiritual awakening. So many words, the great shift, so many things that we're going through that we see on the external, but the original power of the download from the soul is the word consciousness. Light is another one, holy light, right? I'm sorry, what? Are you talking to me? Okay, sorry, there's conversation in the background. So this is your journey. This is the sacred journey of becoming conscious. So as you become more conscious, he says that when you become more conscious, you recognize that you are living in a journey with all others at all times. You don't have to strive to be seen or to be heard or to be respected. You don't have to strive to be competitive with anyone. You're all in this journey, and you start looking for reasons to understand people, not just for them to understand you. You start looking for a way that life begins to transform you down to the microscopic level of your physiological constructs, he states. How beautiful is that? Like that life is gracefully reflecting and transforming you versus you always wanting to fix and change and heal the world. Do you see that this topic just floods me with light. I can't stop talking about this topic. And it's so forgotten. It's so ancient, and you can make it new again, he says. So when you recognize that you are here to be here with everyone else, you're not saying, what is my purpose? What is my life about? He says. He says, now you're saying, where do I fit in this beautiful fabric of the whole of life? And how can I serve it? This is what he's trying to teach you today. Do you guys, are you following along with me in chat? Are you understanding what he's trying to say to you? He's saying so much, but so little, because he wants you to feel this at the core of your soul, not up here. We can't get this up here. This is deep stuff. This is soul work. Up here, we'll get it later. Don't you worry about that. Take this download because it is precious, he says. All right. So no matter where you are, all of life breathes together, functions together. like a grand cosmic machinery that is perfect. All of the things that you are afraid of right now, about the way that your world is going, that's just a cog, like a small little part of the wheel. And if something needs grease, you just give it the grease. You don't say it's broken, right? So the wheel of politics, the wheel of religions, those are all being replaced with something right now, but it's a different politic. You will always need a politic. You will always need a belief system, no matter what you call it, right? But what are you replacing the old with? Don't be so quick to get rid of the old when you don't know how the internal soul functions individually. Start there and then shine that light into those old systems and watch them crumble. Who gets to replace them? Guess what? This is what Christ consciousness is about. We replace it. Humans replace it. We have to have something to replace it with. So the truth in a modern era, he states, is that something we really need to absorb right now as a living law, a living, breathing, universal law that we can all understand together. It is a conscious law. And in this shift, we are in what he calls a living initiation. You are being initiated together as a whole. You are the Word of God. You in your soul are the Word of God. The children of God are its Word, he says. He also says, nature itself, nature, your nature in your soul is performing this initiation. And when you're not listening to the initiation of the soul and how it is just downloading you, just pouring light through you, then the other nature on earth, the catastrophes that all the council, the galactic council has been talking about to you just a few days ago, then that ordains you instead. So he wants you to understand that you have a choice, that you can be initiated and ordained into your soul by the conflicts and catastrophes of the natural law of your planet, and that's very fear-based, or you can choose to be initiated and ordained by the construct of light that is your soul, that we all share together as a living, conscious, breathing, universal law. Do you see the difference in how powerful your sovereignty is when you say, I choose for my own soul to initiate me? Do you feel the difference in what he's talking about? Do you feel how powerful this is, what he's bringing you today, this beautiful Sabbath? We had to wait on a Sunday. I'll tell you what, he released all things. I had so many things that I was curious about talking to you about, and I couldn't pick up on them this morning. I legitimately could not pick up on that. Yet I was sitting there with Anya. I even reached out to a friend. I did the call a friend thing. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to talk about something, and I know I'm supposed to talk about it right now. And you know, my friend said, well, what about this? And society, this is coming up, and that's coming up. You typically talk about that. And I knew I needed to talk to you about something. And it was just erased. So many beautiful ideas just gone. I couldn't even pick a thing. I had to literally sit with it and go, I don't have the words for this. And Jesus came through and said, here's the holy language. You're all relearning it together. The language of the soul that all of us are together being initiated into as the old ways are dying off. This is the new way. What I mean by old ways are not exactly what you think. I don't mean the ancient Catholic Church, even though they have a lot to answer for. I mean mostly what's happened in the past 200 years, 200 to 400 years. Because the time before that, according to Yeshua, we had a holy language. We had a foundation for the soul from which we operated, and we were living in it. But we don't now. These past 400 years, we haven't had it anymore. So what this transmission and channeling today is about how to get that back and how to live in that powerfully. Okay? To live in that powerfully. So we are in the age of energy. So many people have called it New Age, the Age of Aquarius, all beautiful terms. Yeshua just calls that the Age of Energy. Okay? And we now need to know that our energetic nature makes us so sensitive to light and to all of these light downloads. And he wants you to understand that it's okay that you're feeling different about that. Right? Right? Someone said, is it holy, H-O-L-Y, or holy, W-H-O-L-E-Y? Well, I'm not sure. I'm kind of a grammatical freak, and I'm not sure that the second word is a word, but I like both. Jesus said, yes, both. It's both. And he got super excited when you asked that. So he says, we're in the age of energy. And what he wants you to know is that our energetic nature makes us so multisensory. And this new age has changed the rules of life and how we live together and how we breathe together. And in some ways, that is absolutely 100% needed. He wants you to know that's needed, that's necessary, that's wonderful. Jesus likes the new age, which means, by the way, I have to like it too. So, the world has changed since the influence of Jesus's energy in the old times. And the way that it happens in Christ consciousness now is that we bring the all into the whole. Nothing is excluded. So the nature of God is relating to us in a different way. The way that we relate to the word source is changing, right? So one of the realizations right now that he wants to talk about, one of the realizations that we're going through together as a human collective, is that this speed of light download of the soul, this language of the soul, is activating us, it's initiating us, it's downloading it to us. And it's doing so really quickly, very fast. And sometimes he wants to ask you, are you feeling that? Are you seeing that happen in your life? He wants you to know that it's important that you don't say, I'm losing my mind, or that I'm insane, that you don't use these systematic words in the mental health care system to label yourselves or define yourself, because then you're just making it unholy all over again, right? Another realization that he wants to talk about in awakening, he likes that word, he says, and when we're getting these downloads that are awakening the old language of the soul for how it really used to be, how it was meant to be in Christed consciousness, we need to understand more about the fact that we are responsible for what we see. You know, I had a really good download about that today because someone posted in my spiritual community about some guru that's out there in Australia somewhere who thinks he's Jesus, and you see it a lot, and also thinks he's the only Jesus. And my ego was straight into the, oh my God, the pain, the cults, the this, the that. And I really had to sit with that for a minute, because if we're co-creating and if we're one soul, didn't we create that to awaken in that way as well? I had to pull back, my ego had to pull back my judgment of the being because of the pain that he's causing people, and all sorts of stuff came up for me. Like I had to sit with the pain of the Yogi Bhajan stuff, and so much. And then I went, wow. And now if we are responsible, and I asked him, what does that word even mean? He said, well, we are responsible. My children are responsible for creating that as a means of awakening. In a lesser degree, that was a means of awakening for whatever that meant in an elusive world, right? And my ego really didn't like it. And he said, but that co-creation is a sacred contract that you're making together. It doesn't make it right or wrong or good or bad. And of course, pain is terrible. And then he said, I told you in A Course in Miracles that I never said that thoughts are innocent. I never said that to you. The repercussions of a human thought can be powerful, and they can be painful, and they can be loving, and they can help you grow. Right? So I got that download today, and I had to just sit with that for a minute about how, and I asked him, what does that word responsibility mean to you, Jesus? And he said, it means the ability to respond in love and in love only. That's all that it means. And you're also accountable, he went on to teach me further. And I said, I don't know. Right? Ego goes, right? We're programmed against these words because we've lost their true original sacred meaning. So I said, okay, give me a download of light. What is that? And he said, to hold a holy account as a sacred witness for my word. And you go, well, that sounds religious. You mean my word is in the Bible? He said, no, my word as living, breathing children of God on this planet. You are my word. How beautiful was that? Right. And we kind of have to just download this. It's a lot of beauty. It's a lot of love. And we'll try to say, well, does it mean this? And I was sitting with my lovely friend Ellen just yesterday, and I'm like, well, when you say this, then my mind goes, well, what about murder? And what about rape? And what about? Mine spins off because it doesn't have anything. We're trying to get kind of release these painful definitions, but when we don't replace it with anything holy, the mind spins off and tries to create a meaning of its own. And this is the danger of creating unholy meanings. Are you guys following me? Are you with me in this download? It's a very, very sacred download to really get this in the soul, to really let this come into you, and to recognize that you are a part of this world, not its center. Right? Even my cat gets it. I'm also an animal communicator, and my cat said this morning as I was preparing for this channeling, she said, humans think they're just at the center of all of the laws, holy or not. I said, oh, yes, we do. We do. Oh, my goodness. We do. We do think that. But we're trying to weave our way into the tapestry of something really ancient and really holy. And the new pattern of humanity is here. Metatron gave me this beautiful image the other day about weaving a sweater, and all of the threads in them were like colors that I had never seen before, like from some other off-planet place, other world, but they were galactic, kind of shiny, right? And we were weaving something together, a beautiful, deep energy, right? So we're in this age of energy, and we're weaving that sweater together. And you have an influence in that individually and collectively. And this new age of energy has changed the rules of the living law that is the sacred, the living laws of the soul. The world has changed since the influence of this new energy era. And he says now that how we're relating to God is changing, he says, we are the engines of the whole new creation of the world that we are living in, and it is changing rapidly. So as it is changing, imbue it with light, instill the laws of love into everything you do. When you feel that you have not done that, step back and ask yourself this question: where did I separate God from the holy? Where did I separate God from the holy? That's a very important. Don't take that as an aside. That's like a he says that's a directive for you to ask yourself that question in order to get back on track to being in the power of the soul's original sacred language. So we are made of the same elements of earth. We are made of the same elements of air, of space, of stars, of fire, of water. Therefore, you need to understand that the power in your nature is cosmic. It's elemental. And he says that he sees the rise in our collective frustration. He sees our pain. And that is the element of fire. That's that language of your soul, attempting to co-create with other humans on earth when you're angry. And he said, I want you to ask yourself, how are you coping with the transformations happening on your planet? How are you coping with that? Right? So, first of all, in this holy language, he wants you to know, at first your mind will say, I don't know what that is, much less do I know how to communicate it. Right? We've lost the language for that, he says, to communicate that cosmic consciousness. And we're in this season of a crisis of the soul. And we're calling it everything else, like political turmoil and war and some of these words I have a hard time because I'm not programmed with these words. What's the word that you use for when money changes and the housing market falls? We're in a great, you know the word? See, I don't have the word anymore. This is so funny. We had the word when I looked through history. We had something called the Great Depression, right? But there are more modern words for it, right? And that what that is our responsibility, our ability to respond with a download of love towards that situation has created a crisis. It's a crisis of the soul, and this is how it is manifesting in our world, the world of politics, the world of religion. You're seeing it now. Now these things are coming into spirituality as well, right? Because the soul is in a crisis, and we don't have the language to heal it, which is why it comes into our spiritual communities as well, right? So we've never thought about this before, talked about this so specifically in our society, that we actually are co-creating wars, he says, that we actually are co-creating climate change, that we're actually co-creating our financial problems and things of that nature, and as well as, the many disasters that are occurring in the fires and the floods and things of that nature. But we are the engines of co-creation for a whole new world to live in. And because we're made of those same elements as the earth, the air, the space, the cosmos, that's why it's happening. That's why he asked you in the beginning of this channeling, do you know how you function? And do you know your power? So this is how the crises, the season of the soul crises, this is how it is arising, he says. Not just from problems on the planet, not just from problems in politics. But because we don't, he says, because we don't understand the collective power of the soul, much less the individual power, then we retreat into like a collective angst, a collective frustration, a collective anger. He says, in order for me to get you to that language of the soul, you have to see it in the way that you function on a simple daily level. Simple. Where are your thoughts taking you? because your soul is your engine and it starts there. It'll affect your thoughts. It'll then affect your mood. It'll then affect your words that you write and speak. And then the actions are very creative. So God never changes. He wants you to know that. He says, God doesn't change. Source hasn't changed. The laws of the universe haven't changed. What's changing is your capacity to understand the nature of God or to forget it in lieu of your own painful creations. So it is our capacity in us that is shifting now in this new energy era. That great shift that I believe is happening is that we're shifting from an age that we believe, for instance, that God looks like us, acts like us, has human laws, right? And we try to instill that and say that's what God would do, and wars are started and people die, right? So this era, he says, where we are, that we're going into, that we're going to have to understand that there's no off-planet God sitting up on a great throne with a big beard like an Abrahamic God. He says that's not the era that we're in, and God was never that to begin with. So we are starting, this is what we're doing, this is how we're shifting. We're starting to shift together to believe, he states, that God is a cosmic consciousness. God is galactic and cosmic. And he says that there is a volatility at the earth level that happens when our systems begin to fall apart. The nations falling apart, and people with an untrained mind blame the governments themselves and say, well, it's the government's problem, it's the healthcare problem, the religious leaders' problems, the cult leaders' problem, the this, the that, the right. But it has always been our problem with not having a holy language anymore to replace these systems that are broken. So by the time you actually see something acted out on your planet, he says, that's like the caboose of a train, the tail end of it, not, you know what I mean? It's not the engine that drives it. It's the tail end of it. Your soul is your engine, not your body, not your mind. Your soul is the power that you see on this planet. Do you understand the power of what he's sharing with you today? This, he says, this is a great truth awakening within each and every person. So soul, the soul, that's not a word. It is an etheric voice within you that evaporates into the eternal world when you die. But otherwise, where is it? Religions have tried to contain it and say it's in your body somewhere, but the body's temporal, so how can that be true? If the body's an illusion, how can that be true? I think you all can agree that you're not your bodies. We can all agree with that by now, right? He wants you to really say yes or no to that. Maybe some skeptics and atheists crossing our videos might not be there yet. Otherwise, where is the soul? Where do you believe that the soul is? It's the engine of creation that we are all sharing together. Okay? It's mission control, he says. That's your soul. So a part of what's going on now in this era, he says, is that we are realizing that the soul is not a religious object and does not belong to our systems. Okay? All right. That's all that he wants to talk about today, but he says, I'll take a few questions. Just a few questions. And then we'll end there. Any questions for Jesus about this topic? Anybody? This question says, my estranged dad is dying. How should I handle it? He says, I want you to go over these teachings and let them download into your soul. And then I want you to ask for a transmission of truth and permission for forgiveness. Those two things. I want you to ask your soul, number one, for transmission of truth. Number two, for forgiveness, for wherever it applies. He doesn't want you to insinuate that it's towards the estranged dad, but sometimes just the circumstance itself is painful. Sometimes we just have to forgive the circumstance. True? He said, you can't do this alone. You need your soul so desperately. We can't do this alone. He said, remember that remembering God means that you're never alone and you never were to begin with. And you have to be willing to remember that and to believe that download of truth that he's wanted to give you, he says. All right. Next question. I'm just going to look at the thing for a minute. How do we get back to the sacred language? He said you need to commune with the soul. And omit all the language of your thoughts, emotions, and words that are holding you back. And you can feel it. He says you can feel when you think something, feel something, or say something that isn't of that fundamental holy language of the soul, because it makes you feel disconnected, distracted, confused, angry, bitter, resentful. It makes you feel something other than love. And that's how you can tell that your language, not just in your words, but at the foundation of the thought, was off track from the holy. So it's number one, an awareness. Number two, an undoing and a training of the mind back to the holy. And number three, more awareness. Oh, he says number four, more forgiveness, not because it's right or if it's wrong. This is not the construct of forgiveness that he's wanting to share or teach you, because it's not, that would not be true, he says. But forgiveness just means a purification, a release of that which is not serving you in that moment or anyone. The ego wants to pick that apart and say, well, this does serve me and that doesn't, right? So we don't need to go that deep with it. Just a simple, I release that which does not serve. We don't even have to say the word me. I release that which does not serve is a directive that cleanses and purifies, and then forgiveness becomes automatic. Can Jesus speak on music and his connection to a soul language? He says music is without your meaning most of the time, because you feel it in the consciousness of the soul. It stirs you, and that which stirs you so deeply from the soul will purify, release, and therefore invigorate the embodiment of light in the soul. That's the power of music. How can we have more courage speaking the word of God in our everyday lives? He says, oh, you don't need courage. You need faith. Have you asked your soul what it feels like? Have you communed with your soul daily to give you a practice for embodying courage with faith? Because faith is the original sacred language for what you now say is courage. Ask for it. Pray if you pray. Meditate if you meditate. Do what you do, he says. He wants you to know that when he says the word prayer, if you associate it with a religion, wonderful if it makes you feel holy. If you don't, wonderful if it makes you feel holy. And if you resist the word because you think that it is only a religious construct, you're missing something. Try again. Prayer is a deep communion with nature, human nature of the soul, the nature of the soul, the human nature as well, to cleanse and purify that which is your human nature, and then to commune with the nature, the elements of the nature on your planet. That is the true definition of Christed prayer. So that can be something that prayer becomes a more embodied, powerful force for you to utilize. Okay. All right. I'm going to go spend the rest of the Sunday with my family. Thank you, family, that's been here today. You are amazing. Thank you for showing up live with me. I just love when you do that because we can convene in a sacred way together. And, when two or more are gathered together, that power of your soul consciousness is there, right? So thank you for that. Don't forget that for the deeper, longer, more powerful class and channeling of Jesus on this topic, the power of holy language is coming up on September the 4th. That's the first Sunday of September at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. You can be there live to ask your questions. And we're going to go through it really extensively and have him break this down throughout our history as humans from Atlantis until today. Everything that caused us to forget the holy language of the soul, what we attempted to replace it with, what did not work, and what can work or is working right now, and how to stay in the sacred or release or purify and forgive when we can, how to return to it very quickly, all of that, right? Super exciting. Super exciting. So that's coming up. And if you can't join live, just register and we'll be sending you that free downloadable recording. Again, you can get this for 30% off right now just by joining our very affordable Patreon community. We've got all those links above. All right. I'll see you really soon. Oh, I forgot to tell you tomorrow. We have a class tomorrow on our Patreon community. I don't get the downloads until like the day of. Anya, what's that class? Just give me the name and I'll get the download. I don't know if she's here. I might have to look it up. Hold on. Okay, there's my schedule. Announcements are so fun when you're channeling because you just forget. Tomorrow is the class Practical Mysticism. So along the same language, how to look at the ancient tenets of mysticism and make them modern and practical. We're busy people. We're busy modern people. So that's tomorrow for all tier levels at 1 p.m. on Patreon. And then on Thursday, we're channeling St. John of the Cross. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be communing with and connecting with this particular mystic because I've always had a deep wonder about this soul and what, he calls it the luminous dark night of the soul. That's the topic that he's going to be discussing, and how light isn't empty. Light isn't empty, it's full, but darkness isn't empty either. So can't wait to see you for that. That's what we have. Both of those things coming up this week. Oh my goodness, exciting week, exciting month. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.